Welcome to Jesus Centric Life. I'm Donna. I'm here with Pastor Josh, and we have a really great podcast for you today. We have a good friend of ours, Kathy, and Kathy's going to share a little bit of a faith journey that she's been through, her family's been through, and tell her story within the story of this. So we don't usually write things out, but I'm going to kind of share with you a little bit, kind of give you an overview and frame the story as it happened. So a few years ago, something happened, Kathy, and your family that no one ever expected. One of your kids suddenly left home. One moment, everything felt normal, and the next moment, your family didn't know where your daughter was. Over time, little pieces of information started coming together. Some clues suggested she may have traveled to another state, so you all made the decision to get boots on the ground where you thought she was, while you all stayed back here in Colorado trying to connect the dots from a distance. It was one of those moments where everyone was doing everything they could, but no one really knew if it would be enough. There were about 72 hours spent searching, following every lead that came in, but nothing was coming together. Eventually, you all reached the point where the time had run out. It was time for the people searching to catch their plane and come back to Denver. And then the unexpected happened. An empty baggage cart struck the plane as it sat at the gate, damaging it. The flight was canceled. This event actually gave them more time, the people searching more time, to follow up on one more clue that had come in while the plane was waiting to take off. 12 hours later, your daughter was found. Looking back, that random baggage cart hitting the plane feels like one of those moments where God quietly steps into the story. I don't think God quietly stepped into that story, but
no.
It sounds good as I'm reading it. But the truth is, he had the story in his hands the whole time. Today on the podcast, we're going to talk with Kathy about what it was like to walk through those days as a parent, what faith looked like in the middle of chaos, and how God worked through the entire journey. Did that sum it up pretty well?
It did really well. Yeah. Nice job.
A baggage cart, seriously?
I couldn't believe it, but yes. Yeah. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you had your own miracle.
I don't think there's any other explanation. I don't think you can logically. There was no wind. There's no slope on the ground. There's nobody driving it. It was another airlines, not even the same airline as the flight about to take off. So it's like, I don't know how you can explain that away other than the hand of God.
Yeah, and I love, we've sat and talked about this a lot, and I love every single time we talk about, you always go back to it was his story. It was what he did in that moment.
Yeah,
I love that. Yeah. So as a parent, what is harder, the not knowing or the not being able to control the situation? Because you didn't know where she was.
I don't know that I can pick one. I think it's a little bit of both. In the beginning, we had no information, and that was really hard. That was a lot of emotion of, like what happened, why, where, with who, what was the intent, all those kinds of things going through your mind. And that was really, really hard. And then not being able to control, I like to control and fix, and it's a part of who I am. And like you said, eventually we ended up doing things on our own to move forward. We weren't really in control of anything at all. But we were doing what we could with the gifts and the talents and the resources that God's given us. And that there was comfort in that for me, because I felt I wasn't just sitting. And I think just sitting and saying, well, God will, work this out according to his will. Like I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but that would have been really hard for me. So,
you and your husband both.
Both of us. We have very similar personality types like that, where we want to get our hands in there and fix. So, so they were both really hard. The not knowing was always hard. And we would hear, there would be these little moments of kind of going down a dark path mentally of like, what if, what if this, what if that? And I had to just kind of stop and pray and say, I'm not going to go there. We're not going to do that.
What part did prayer play for you in all of this?
It was pretty constant. We would wake up and pray. And then usually pastor would actually come over in the mornings and pray with us. We would have friends texting to say, I'm praying, let me know how to pray. So we were surrounded by prayer with people in our church, there were people I didn't even know, I had never met, praying for us. And so we were praying like throughout the entire time. And there was a prayer of bring her home, help us, give us something that will help, another clue, give us some information, but also just give us peace, give us stamina. It was exhausting. And so I think we just had to cling to trying to seek God's presence through all of this and just
Well said.
realize he has her, and that he was gonna work this. So but it was crucial.
Yeah. So Kathy mentioned that you were there in the mornings and spent time praying with them. Pastor, my understanding is when the decision came for Kathy and her husband to stay in Colorado, that was kind of a question that you posed or a statement that you posed. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it was a group of us, and I think it was the people that end up going, and then the two of us, and me and you and your husband we were all there talking about that. And I think the one thing I said that I still remember is that you needed to do that with him. Like wherever one of you went, the other one went, and the two of you not splitting up. And then I remember pausing. We prayed, right? We prayed about what we were supposed to do. We prayed if anybody was supposed to go. We prayed if everybody was supposed to go. And then we kind of, I think, came down to that decision. And I think it was you kind of gave everybody a voice and a vote in that too. Like it's, I think I saw you guys really not just, because you're really smart people. And I saw you not just trusting yourself, but trusting the people that God had placed around you at a high level when it was something so valuable.
So what made you make the statement that you felt whatever they did, they needed to do together?
Yeah.
What prompted that?
So I didn't share this with you at the time, and I forget if I've shared you after, but most kids where this happens, they don't find the kid. And so I knew how important it was for Kathy and JD. My biggest concern was, because again, I knew the odds. My biggest concern was, how do I help you guys walk through this? And I knew that you walking through it separately was going to be problematic for both your physical, emotional, and spiritual lives. And so that was my biggest concern. I didn't have a problem with anybody going looking, because I think that would have allowed you guys to say we did everything. But really it was, I was concerned about you guys going forward, because that's, again, control. That's what I could control. Like I couldn't control if, which again ties back into, it was a miracle that it all happened, because the odds, you can look up the odds. I forget them now, but you can look up the odds. It's not high that, you're reunited with your kid. And I don't know if you looked them up or knew that at the time, but I did know it. So
yeah, I remember, at the time it was hard to hear that, like, as a parent, and my husband feels the same way. You're like, I will do everything to take care of my kid.
Mm-hmm.
And
how biblical is that?
yeah, right?
I mean, when we talk about the lost sheep, God goes after us, and nothing nothing stops him. Nothing was going to stop you.
Right. And I remember thinking, like, I think trusting, right? Like, we really trusted Pastor's wisdom, like that he, had a viewpoint that we really needed to consider. And it was hard. It was really hard. And deciding who was going to go was difficult. Those people are close to me, and that was hard to let them go as well. It was actually my mom was the first vote.
She was there too.
And she, contrary to what I would say is her nature, she said, they got to go. They got to go. And so, trusting also her, like knowing, her as a parent and as a grandparent, to say that. And so, yeah, it was a very difficult decision. Looking back, I can say God's hand was all over that decision, because had it been that I went or my husband went, or both of us went, it might have appeared to a lot of people and to us, to our daughter, that it was us, that it was our hand and our control and our, and I think the way, looking in hindsight, we can look back, and I don't think that anyone can question that it was God's timing, his provision of every clue, every step was all him.
Yeah, and as you talk about the baggage cart, like, there's no explanation as to why it hit the plane. And it's almost at that point, he was like, hey, this is my story. Yeah. I need it to be my story.
Absolutely. The thing you didn't share on the story is I got a call right before boarding. From the people there, and the closest person to me that was there searching, said, I don't think we're supposed to come home, and we want to stay. And at that point, I was like, I need you back. It a little bit became about me, of like, I need you here. Like, this is already hard enough. I need you here. And I said, no, get on the plane, come home. My husband and I will go out, take a friend or whatever, we'll take our steps. We'll send another,
in a few days.
Yeah. And another crew will be back on the ground. And that
was like, hold my beer.
Well, and the other part of it is why you're getting that phone call. I'm getting a phone call from the other person on the ground, because we had decided as a group how long it would be.
Right.
And that plane was, I think they were both booked at the same time. The flight there and the flight back, and the agreement was made. And so I was towing the line with the other person that went, telling them, no, we agreed on this.
Yes.
Why they're getting on the plane.
Yeah. So yours as well. Mm-hmm. Like, there was a little bit of, this was the agreement and this was the plan, and we got to stick to the plan. And God's like, I got my own plan.
Seriously.
Yep.
The moment you heard, so my understanding, they contacted you, the people searching, and were like, a baggage cart just came into the plane. What did you think in that moment?
Yeah, the call was like, guess what? You're not going to believe this. And I was like, what did you do?
What did you do?
And then I got the story about the baggage cart and I thought, okay, yeah, you need to stay. And I was like, I don't know what this means. And like, but you're supposed to stay. And it was literally in the time that they were at the airport waiting, we had this one clue that we were really kind of trying
locking into.
Yeah, like we felt like it was the most promising clue we had had. And it literally gave us time to, run that down and pinpoint that, not in general, exact location.
Yeah.
So that was amazing.
So I want to shift a little bit and talk about faith in this incredibly difficult moment. Both you and your husband have very strong faith, and you trust God deeply. Where were the moments where it was easy to lean into that faith through this situation? Mm-hmm. And what were the moments that was like, man, I just don't want to give this to you, God?
I think, I would say, I don't think there was a time where I didn't want to give it to him. I think it was in the very beginning, there was a lot of why. Why did, that's all that was kind of going through my mind. And we would have people like supporting us and praying for us, or, bringing us meals and things like that. And occasionally someone would ask like, well, what was going on? And, and I was like, I don't know the why. And then it flipped to a point of, I can't focus on the why. I can't keep asking God, why did this happen? Why did you allow this to happen? It was more just trusting that as much as I love my daughter, he loves her even more. And so I think it just became the thing we had to cling to. And because we couldn't control, we knew we couldn't control it. We could do things that might get us answers or might move us closer, but we couldn't control anything. And I think it was just clinging to him for everything, like just trying to just stay with him and just trust. And I may not see it. I may not get a good clue. I may not know what's happening. There may be more questions than answers, but it was just cling to him and trust.
Yeah, and because that's a real interesting one. Why do you think, and maybe you don't have an answer to it, but why were you able to focus, move off of asking the why to trusting in him? Because that's a real hard move, and I'm not sure. And this is, a hugely difficult situation, and you're able to move off of the why. Do you have anything looking back that helped you do that?
I think it wasn't going to fix anything. Even if I got the answer, it's not going to solve the situation I'm in.
Yeah.
And there was I think there was trust that I may in the future be able to look back and get that answer of why. But in that moment, that wasn't what was most important. And it wasn't, I think at that, the question of why was a little bit about me. And, what did I do? What did our family do wrong? What could
I have done differently?
Differently. Yeah, exactly. And so, where it was more just, that wasn't going to serve us in that moment, at least.
And you're an engineer, so you think problem solving.
Yeah.
So getting stuck in that why was just going to keep you kind of stuck.
A little bit, yeah. And that's, I think it's human nature, and you'll say why, and, and I think it's okay to be mad at God or ask the questions or cry out. And I think, but you can't sit in it. I think sitting in it is where it could be really destructive to your faith, destructive to progress. And so, yeah, we just wanted our daughter back.
Yeah,
we didn't care the why.
That's very on point. Why destructive to your faith? Why hard to your faith?
Because I think it puts God in a, like, first of all, you did this, kind of, a little bit of that going on. And I don't think God caused this, right? I don't think this was his doing. So I think there's some danger in that and like, I'm not immune to hard just because of my faith. I'm not, it's not what I do. It's not how many times I go to church. It's not how long I've been a Christian or how any of that.
Right.
We're not promised that a life of ease. And
wouldn't it be nice if we were?
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Philippians 3:13, one of my favorite verses, but forgetting what lies behind and reaching toward what is ahead. Right. I think like we can live in the past of like what has happened as opposed to the future that God's calling us into. Right. And I think like, you could have stayed there, but choosing to move into the future was where Christ is, right? He's, even if you could have discovered something, I could have done better. I could have done this, or we could have done this better. It wouldn't have changed it in that instance, right? You could have analyzed it to death and, it wouldn't have changed the present you're in. And I think, forgetting what lies behind, but reaching toward what is ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, and there came a time. I mean, we did get a time where we could look back and maybe kind of see some of the things that led to that event, and work towards doing things better. So I think there's value in that.
Yeah.
It just like you said, it's not that moment was the right question to be sitting in.
Yeah, I think you did a really good job. It sounds like intentionally choosing when to look forward and when to look back. Because there's nothing. There is value in looking back. I don't want to say that we're just forward thinking only, but in the right moments and in the right spaces, and in the right like mental and emotional and spiritual spaces, like you look back.
So how has this experience shaped your faith since then?
Gosh. So, well, first of all, there's no question in my mind God can't and won't move in very real and just obvious ways. He can do it. Sometimes you look back and you see it more so than when you're in the middle of it. You may, it's easier sometimes to look back and see his hand in hindsight. I think he's in the big things. He's in the little things. And just, there's a song that I don't even know if I can still make it through without getting choked up trying to sing the words to it, but just like this overwhelming love of God. And I felt his presence just pressing on us in so many ways that was just undeniable, and that he was there.
Reckless love.
Reckless.
Yeah. I want to wrap this up with a word of encouragement to parents that are going through hard. You guys went on to do some pretty extensive work, and it was a long haul of doing work, and that really blessed your family. What would you encourage for families that have some hard going on and they don't know what to do? What do you encourage them?
I think keep praying, keep, one of the hard things for me was making the decision to make it public in a way, right? Public to our church. Because you're putting yourself out there as being vulnerable of like, our family's not perfect. And I don't know why that is a hurdle, but because we know
it is for everybody.
Yes.
None of us are perfect, but I think kind of putting it out there of like, this is a really hard time, but we were blessed by that. And it actually was what helped, one of the things that helped us through that hard, like very directly, but I think also indirectly with the support of prayer, and the family. So I think, find your people of who you can really be vulnerable with and share with, and just involve God in every single thing. And then trust that you may not hear his voice directly.
You may not get a baggage cart.
You may not get a baggage cart, but he will lead and he will guide, and to trust that he is giving you guidance through, resources that may be presented to you. So you're not alone. That was really important for me to hear, that there were others that had gone through this and gone through positively. I didn't want to talk about or hear about the negatives and the statistics. So I think that's encouragement, and that it may take time. It may be hard. It may be really hard and really long, but there will be healing.
Yeah, I love that. And I love you don't go alone, right? We're reminded of that every Sunday. You do not go alone. And that's not an empty promise. That's a very real promise. Kathy, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your story. And we just praise God for his work throughout that story, his hand, literally, throughout that story. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on the next Jesus Centric Life. Have a great day.